Okay, guys, welcome back. So today I'm delighted to be joined by Jack Hughes of Norm Film Orchestra. Welcome, Jack.
Hi, James. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, doing great. Excited to be here
Yeah,
and chatting with you.
great. Well, look, thanks for taking the time because I guess at the moment there's a whole range of stuff that we're going to talk about, and I guess the first and best place probably to start before we get into anything else is what is Northern Film Orchestra and how did it sort of come about?
Yeah, I mean, it's still evolving. I'd love to be able to give you a concrete answer on what we are, but we're still kind of figuring our way out. But the background was that I'm a film composer myself, but I'm not from a classical background. And then I started working at the Royal Northern College of Music, which is the conservatoire in Manchester. And then I was also working at the Stoller Hall, which was like a brand new concert hall with amazing acoustics. And I just had the idea to kind of put the two together. I noticed that I was in the right place where I
I,
had access to the space.
I was going
And
to
then I
say
had,
it seems
yeah,
like a right place, kind of right time. These kind of key resources sort of seem to be right at your fingertips there.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I just saw that, yeah, I was the guy who was sort of in between those two things. So I decided to put it together. And then, yeah, we're from there really. But the idea to begin with was to be a scoring service. It was a UK alternative to like the ones you see in Hungary, and then there's a few other in Eastern Europe. Just because I felt that, well, with so much of the film industry being like active here in the UK, why wasn't there a sort of like a lower down option than say recording at Abbey Road or Air Studios? So that was the inception idea, and things grew from there. Really,
Y-
did our first session back in January, which was a shared session with composers, and that was sort of an experiment. Like we had a plan, we knew where things were going, but don't know fully how things will unfold until you actually get there and do it.
Yeah, so
Luckily, things went quite well on that one. But yeah, that's the background really.
yeah, I mean, and that's interesting for people that aren't in the know or haven't come across this. There is over the last few years, there certainly you're right. There has been a trend of these kind of Eastern European orchestras who do
Yeah,
these sort of live sessions that fill in that you can get some bits and pieces scored. And I've found some people in my experience who have had real success with that. I've found others who I think have struggled with that. And I think one of the key things, and you'll probably say, particularly with a shared session that you talked about, and I think just to touch on it before we talk more about Northern Film Orchestra is, I think it's really important before you use any of these kind of services. And I've talked about it before in other places, is to make sure that your scoring and your transcribing and everything is extremely clear, extremely well labeled, laid
yeah,
out to avoid these kind of faux pas and things. And is that something you kind of before when someone comes to you for a shared session, let's say, is that a
yeah.
conversation that you kind of have with them?
Well, usually I'll try and gauge where they're at in terms of like their skill level and with those things. Most of the composers we've dealt with are pretty good, it seems to be. But our thing is, we always ask for you to give us parts with enough time, or more than enough time to iron out any problems, and then we can send music out to people to have a look over. But generally, yeah, we haven't encountered too many issues yet. But I think musicians can definitely be a bit fussy with certain things, so it's hard to know exactly which the best way of writing things out is. But yeah, you're right. I think it's a key component. I think you wanting to record with live musicians and definitely orchestras. That's one of the reasons why I think having a good orchestrator or a good arranger as like one of your friends is a really good like thing to have in your bag, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's lots of people sort of early on in the industry kind of doing, I think, doing it themselves now, and that's becoming more of a sort of
Yeah,
trend. Is a lot of people are trying to keep it in house. I know me personally, from my side of composing, I my first early jobs were working for a couple of different composers as a transcriber, and then building up to
yeah,
arranging and orchestrating. And I think one of the clear things, as you said, sometimes musicians can be fussy. We're a strange bunch of people at times. I think it's just
hmm,
the main thing is keep, I think three things I could say about parts just to keep in people's heads who are thinking about doing something like this is one, make it in a clear font. Make sure whatever the typeset you're
yeah,
using is clear. Two, make sure there is some space between staves as well for if the session players want to write notes and want to do stuff in. And the other thing I would say that people forget about a lot, and this is probably the biggest thing when I was doing transcribing and copyist work that I spent the most time on, is page turns. Really think about and plan potentially where your page turns are going to be, and if possible, just get it onto an amount of pages that is sensible. And don't forget that sometimes you're going to have two players at a desk. One of them is maybe going to be able to turn the page. There are going to be other times where you've got one player at a desk, so you can spread across two sheets without a page turn. So just think about those kind of logistics.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, rhythm, it seems to be in my experience, is like, well, there's multiple ways of writing things out, isn't it? So you've got to, what's the most clear way of doing it, I guess, is like what you need to be asking.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Is thinking about, what's the most clear way that everyone's going to very quickly connect with. Because I think perhaps, I'm not sure, I would imagine for your sessions as well, you've got quite tight deadlines to stick to about how much time you're giving each kind of client in a session.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has like their slot basically, and then they can't really go over that. So they need to know coming in that what they're submitting to us is appropriate for that, really, and that it's down to them to make things as easy as possible for the musicians. But it's a team effort at the end of the day, so we're all working towards the same goal, I think, of just everyone coming away happy.
Great. So delving in a bit more about the orchestra now, where have you sort of sourced your kind of players from? Because obviously the central hub of lots of stuff we see is, you mentioned some place like Abbey Road and stuff. We kind of see a big kind of chunk of musicians from there that are all sort of London based or tend to come from, not too far. And I'm quite interested to see sort of, where did you sort of find your sort of stock musicians from that you've got for this orchestra?
I think pretty much all of them come from the Royal Northern College of Music, or at least sort of recent graduates or still there doing their postgrad or whatever. But yeah, the fixer I asked specifically because I knew she knew a lot of people and that she'd be good with the admin side of arranging logistics and picking the right players. But yeah, everyone's pretty much from the Royal Northern College of Music, and then I think we've got a few others that have like graduated but they're still in the Manchester area. I just thought it was cool to have an orchestra where everyone's kind of the same age, in their 20s, and it's like, we just got a shared, I don't know, it's like we can all grow together then as well, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think as well that, and as you say, these musicians that you've selected are also going to mature with you over time and probably stay doing those gigs with you. And I think people, from that background, Royal Northern is a very prestigious institute, and if people are coming from there, the standard is going to be high for those people, which session players, you expect the standard to be high. And I think that put a lot of people's kind of minds at ease. Have you had anyone being like, well, who are these people, or have they been like, no, the reputation of those players kind of precedes itself?
Yeah, well, I think composers always are kind of eager to know exactly what they're dealing with or what they can get away with putting in front of people. But yeah, for the most part, everyone's been more than happy with what we've supplied. I was just blown away by the way they can just come in and then lay it down on sort of first reading of the music. I mean, we send it to them to have a look over, but we all know that they might they might not always give things the preparation that's needed. But I was really nervous for about the first minute of our first session, and after that I was like, these guys know what they're doing. I shouldn't have really been as nervous as I was.
That's the nature of the creative process, though. Whenever you've created this, whether you're creating a piece of music, when people are going to hear it or it's going to come together for the first time, that is a huge moment. And I guess, I mean, you've probably spoke to the players and stuff afterwards. What did they feel about it? I mean, what?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've gathered, everyone really enjoyed it. I guess it's probably rare that they get to do something like that, which is like a full day's recording with lots of different pieces that are sort of wildly different. Like we have ones that are more contemporary classical and then ones that are kind of straight up film music. So yeah, we got a lot of compliments on the range of music that we're doing. I think it was nice for them as well, just to play in such an amazing hall. A lot of them are sort of friends with each other as well. So I think it was like just a good experience all around. And then obviously the more technical side of things, like the microphone setup, it's probably the first time a lot of those players have recorded in those settings. So I imagine all of that's like really fun for them doing new things.
Yeah, and I guess what's nice about this, from what I'm learning about it as we talk about, is they're also getting that experience to put on their wider CV. Like, I can remember at university, if someone had said we'd have some chances like that, that would have been absolutely incredible
Yeah.
as a player, or even as someone else just on the side watching how a session is run and how that kind of thing works. So I think that's a really good opportunity that quite often we don't have, and it's nice to hear potentially that the orchestra is not just necessarily going down that traditional route, because quite often I think
Yeah.
you've got like core groups in kind of London that deal with certain things, like doing your more modern contemporary things seems to be groups like London Contemporary Orchestra and those kind of guys
Yeah.
for film, whereas you've got other groups that are doing more traditional. I think that sounds like a really exciting proposition, that you've potentially got an orchestra up there that can deal with that. And do you think that's part of, do you think that's a reflection of where scoring is moving to at the moment, towards more hybrid things and more kind of a mix of things? Or do you, from what you're seeing, see it going a different way?
Yeah, I think there's probably an element of truth in that. I mean, it all comes down to the story at the end of the day. If you're working on a film, it's what does the story you're trying to tell require? But I think these days directors, we're all just got so much music that we used to listening to now with Spotify and everything. People's palette is a lot wider than it's ever been. So I think the envelope has been pushed quite far in each direction. So I think you can get away with doing more experimental and things that like 20 years ago would have been seen as sort of really left field. But it is nice to see how people merge the two, because I like the traditional lush orchestra sound, and then I like all the modern hybrid stuff. But yeah, I think it's good to see how people can combine those together, I think.
Nice. So obviously, well, guys, that brings us to the end of part one of our chat with Jack. He's going to be back again in part two, talking about more stuff. We've touched on a few things there. Let us know your thoughts in the comments about session orchestras. If you had some good experiences, bad experiences, are you one of the composers that we've mentioned? What do you think about this idea of running stuff out? It'd be really great to hear from you in the comments section. Also, put the names of the composers of pieces that we heard from Northern Film Orchestra's website in the description, as well, as I know they've got other upcoming sessions and big plans. Guys, thanks for listening. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. I'll see you soon.